Well, we recently caught up with a tireless campaigner against Britain's weapons of mass destruction campaign at the Edinburgh Festival. The Scottish politician Tommy Sheridan was expelled from a historically right-wing Labour Party in 1989, and he has been to jail for his opposition to British nuclear weapons. Well, ahead of the 16th of September, I'm with Tommy Sheridan here at the bar of the Gilded Balloon Theatre in Edinburgh. Tommy, thanks so much for agreeing to speak to us. Theresa May's government maintains absolutely that it is Westminster, her government, herself, who controls the nuclear deterrent here, based here in Scotland.
Well, it's like most things Theresa May says, they should carry a massive health warning, because it's a lot of tosh, of course. We don't have an independent nuclear deterrent. We have nuclear weapons that are dependent on American trigger formulas and trigger devices.
The Ministry of Defence absolutely refutes what you just said.
Yeah, the Ministry of Defence also refuted that there was an accident at Faslane several months ago until a Freedom of Information request was able to show that they were lying. I mean, they mislead all the time. The Ministry of Defence misled us about weapons of mass destruction in Iraq, so the idea that they're going to mislead us about who's controlling our nuclear weapons is no surprise.
Tell me about, you've been jailed for protesting Faslane. Tell me about Faslane in Scotland and the nuclear submarine base and how safe it all is up there.
Given what is going on in the world right now, we could be exterminated as we speak, because, let's face it, we become a legitimate target because of the presence of nuclear weapons at Faslane, 40 miles here from Edinburgh and Glasgow. We get an argument all the time that we should maintain this deterrent because it protects jobs. Now, this deterrent has a running cost annually of £1,000 million, £1 billion a year, and it guarantees around 1,000 jobs. I asked the leader of Glasgow City Council how many jobs they could maintain on the basis of £1 billion a year, and they told me 20,000 jobs. We should be investing in jobs, hospitals, schools, not in nuclear weapons.
I know your arguments are backed up by research done by Campaign Against the Arms Trade and so on, but presumably contractors involved in the Faslane nuclear base would say it's an advertisement for British arms sales right around the world that the submarine is there.
Well, the research isn't just backed up by the Campaign Against Arms Trade. The Scottish Trade Union Congress, in terms of the jobs argument, they done a major investigation into this whole argument about how many jobs, and they come up and said around 400. Around 400 are directly responsible for Trident. When you then add in some of the contractual jobs round about it, it rises at its best to 1,000. We need to have some moral arguments. I remember Martin Luther King once making the point that when scientific power outruns moral power, we end up with guided missiles but misguided men. And in reality, what we have ended up here is we have ended up with an economy in a country like Britain and America, the two largest sellers of armaments across the world. All they want to do is sell arms to everybody and then go on about how it's terrible that there's so many wars. The truth is, we profit from war. That's why there's so many wars. They used to make arms because of war. Now they make war to sell arms.
You've known the Labour leader Jeremy Corbyn for many decades. He has made in the past similar points. He's now the bookies' favourite to be the next Prime Minister. What do you think about the fact that the Murdoch Sunday Times some time ago said it had interviewed a senior serving general in the forces saying that there would be mutiny in the military if Jeremy Corbyn was ever to become Prime Minister?
The British establishment, which is rotten to the core and completely and utterly undemocratic, will do all in its power to stop Jeremy Corbyn ever being elected, just as they did all in their power to stop Scottish independence. Let's face it here. When in September 2014, Scotland was on the cusp of breaking one of the most successful and longest-serving imperialist organisations on the planet, they mobilised everything in their power. They gave us every single lie, every single threat, all of the bullying that you could think of in order to try and maintain this unequal British Union. Now, they won. Narrowly, I've got to say, they won. But they won't win the next time. And in relation to Jeremy knows in his heart.
Well, he doesn't talk much about Trident nowadays in public.
Well, Jeremy, let's face it, is a...
Do you think he realises that he shouldn't be able to?
I think he's a wonderfully compassionate, articulate man. He's a man who is honest, he's got integrity coming out of his ears, and I hope sincerely that he becomes the next Prime Minister of Britain. My worry with Jeremy, and he knows this better than me, and he'll have advisors, and I'm sure John McDonnell in particular will give him this advice. His natural instincts to build bridges. He is a compassionate man, which makes him a forgiving man. And he will, I think, try and bring people into the tent rather than exclude them from the tent. But the lessons of history are there to be read. You look at what's happening in Venezuela right now in relation to a great opportunity to build a new society, not just in Venezuela, but across Latin America. And perhaps Maduro and others have tried to accommodate some of the opponents rather than highlight that they are out to destroy this new movement, destroy this new hope. Sometimes you have to expose what your opponents are up to and make sure people know what they're up to, and you exclude them from power. Jeremy, I hope, learns those lessons, because if he is ever on the cusp of taking power in Britain, the forces of reaction will become vicious against him. And if you consider what happened in the 70s in relation to the fear around a Wilson government, when openly Mountbatten, if you read his memoirs, talked about how they planned the coup, the British coup, which was to overthrow the idea of a Wilson government. Do you think they're not meeting just now to plan how to overthrow a potential Corbyn government? Of course they are.
Well, on this subject, I mean, over the summer, the Guardian newspaper quoted sources, maybe official, from the UK judge-led inquiry into British secret police infiltration of 1,000 political groupings that were infiltrated by British secret police. The names of the groups weren't released. Do you think your groups you've been associated will be on that list if Justice Hitchford ever releases them?
People in Scotland who are aware of some of the political battles I've personally been involved in against the Murdoch regime and the Murdoch papers will know that I accused Murdoch of illegally tapping phones, of illegally bugging cars, of illegal infiltrating movements with the aid of the police and special branch. And to be quite frank, I was recommended for the White Coat Brigade in those days. People now don't accuse me of needing the White Coat Brigade to lead me away to the nearest asylum, because everything I said was happening. So from my point of view, there's no doubt that the left in particular and the trade union movement is riven with that type of infiltration.
Boris Johnson, the Foreign Secretary, has reportedly signed off on keeping secret the evidence of Secretary of State Jack Straw on his role in the use of Scottish airports to kidnap people for torture. What happened about that in Scotland? Do you know? Do people know here whether Edinburgh Airport, Prestwick Airport, or Glasgow Airport is currently being used by the Americans?
No, we don't know for certain. We have various leaks, including from WikiLeaks, which alerted us, and I remember when I was in the Scottish Parliament up until 2007, we were raising these things in 2005, 2006, and we were asking the Scottish ministers to assure us that Scottish airports were not being used for renditions, for effectively illegal kidnappings to torture individuals. And the Scottish ministers were in the embarrassing position that they could not give us those guarantees.
And just finally, I mean, as far as sectarianism goes in Scotland, of course, now Scotland being de facto run by a party in a sort of coalition, a party like the DUP, previously linked to paramilitaries. Do you think there'll ever be a chance of a James Connolly statue here in Edinburgh?
Well, not if the DUP had its way, of course. And we should be recognising the giant that James Connolly was. He was someone who supported the unity of the Catholics and the Protestants together. He was someone who was Scottish. He wasn't Irish. People think he was an Irishman. He went over there to Ireland to try and unite the trade union movement. He talked about the need to raise the red flag rather than just the tricolour in Ireland. And I think here in Scotland, we should have the ability to recognise that he is a man of great historical importance who was born down at the Cowgate. They are not a million miles from where we are. We should be erecting statues and recognising that he stood not for sectarianism, not for the division of the working class, but for the unity of the working class. And that's the type of politics, surely, that we should be trying to implore people to embrace. The idea of hope over fear, hope for the future, and a society that's based on people, not profit.
Tommy Sheridan, thank you.